Ladies and gentlemen, people of UCLA Radio, welcome back to UCLA Radio's Red Carpet to Wrestlemania. This week on the show with us, we have an awesome guest, another fellow broadcaster here, WWE's play-by-play commentator for Japanese pay-per-views and for all sorts of shows and all the Japanese programming. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Shun Yamaguchi. UCLA Radio へようこそ。お元気ですか？
お元気ですよ、皆さん。UCLA カリフォルニアどうですか、皆さん。Thank you for having me on this show. It's a pleasure.
For sure. We're really excited to have you. So obviously, being broadcasters here ourselves, we appreciate what you guys do just as much as appreciating how the wrestlers do their job. So first thing I wanted to ask you, how long have you been a professional wrestling fan?
Professional wrestling fan? That is a very interesting question because first of all, I don't know if some people know, or most people maybe know, but my brother was the cayenne manager, Yamaguchi-san, and he's 6 years older than I am. And he took me to my first wrestling match, 1972, in Korakuen Hall, which is in near Tokyo Dome, where the Giants play baseball, which also happens to be only one train station away from my grandma's house. So yeah, we were always given a kind of a green light to go, by my parents. And if it's late, and usually it ends late, we usually go crash at my grandma's house. And so my brother took me to my first wrestling match. It was the Mil Mascaras's debut match in Japan. So I remember that quite clearly. I don't really remember the rest, but I kind of remember Mil Mascaras and the mask and the whole feather and everything. It was great. So, my brother was a really, really big influence to professional wrestling, and I would just tag along with him to the shows. So I was 6 and he was like 12, 13. And my brother already was starting to talk with we went to an international school, so we were talking in English to the gaijin foreign wrestlers in the Korakuen Hall. Right. And my brother was picked up by these Japanese wrestling reporters saying, "Hey kid, you could speak, huh? Can you ask this question to the Stomper, or can you ask this question to Spyrus Arian, or some of these old timers,
Right.
And that's how he started this job. And I used to just go tag along his to the matches, and then it was also prime time in Japan on TV. So it wasn't just it wasn't All Japan, New Japan yet. It was only Zen Nippon, where Baba and Inoki was still together back then. But there were also groups called Kokusai Pro Wrestling with Rusher Kimura and those guys started to be on TV also. So it was just on TV a lot. There was also anime called Tiger Mask.
Right
around that time. And it was, I betcha you can't broadcast that anymore because of the blood and the cruelty. And it was very striking, and, now that we're much older, and when I read that or watch that on YouTube or something, I go like, oh my gosh, I would not let my son or my daughter watch this, But we would, I would collect like those figurines, of the tiger mask and everything. So I've been, going to matches like every now and then. Like I didn't go to like Osaka or even in Tokyo. I only went to like Korakuen Hall for a while, And every now and then when there's a big match and when I just show interest, my brother was already making money, doing translation. So he would just like, bring me to the matches, And I remember sitting on Danny Hodges' lap as a kid every time he came to Japan.
Wow. I mean, that's crazy because Danny Hodges, obviously the legend of the wrestling business. But yeah, so when did you yourself decide that you wanted to maybe sort of follow in your brother's footsteps and kind of do the same thing he was doing and get into wrestling like
Mm,
that?
good question. So after high school in Japan, I came to college in the United States, and actually it was in Boston. Um, and one day my brother calls me up. He never calls me up, and he calls me up and he goes, "Hey, do you still have your camera?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course I do. What's up?" And he goes, "You want to make some cash?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And he goes, "Can you go to Madison Square Garden next month? Because Bob Backlund is going to drop his strap against the Sheik, I think." And I'm like, "Bob Backlund, yeah, 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 yeah." Because by that time, that was 1980. I think it was three. You know, I think it was three, maybe four, but I have a feeling it was 1983.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to. I'm like, "So how do I go about it?" And he goes, "You have to go to Holland Hotel in New York City and get the press credential from uh, Arnold Scollin." And I'm like, "Okay, sure." And you know, that's my second year in college, and although I was able to speak English, I wasn't so sure. I've never been to New York. Actually, I went once, just for fun. But it was first time I go to New York City for like a job, you
Right.
know, and then to find this Holland hotel, and getting first of all going into that room was like The Godfather, you know. There's Mean Gene Skull. I mean, I'm sorry. There's Arnold Skull in there, I think, and um, Gorilla Monsoon was there, I think. Um, and the cigar smell, cards playing, and then I'm like, knock, knock, knock. He goes, "Hi, I'm from the Nippon Sports Pro Wrestling and Gong Magazine, and I need ringside credentials today." He goes, "Okay, kid, come over here," and then they just gave it to me, and that was the first show I went, and took pictures of, and since then I was, shooting wrestling at Madison Square Garden every month,
Mm-hmm.
and then they would also come to Boston Garden,
Right.
and I never really took pictures on ringside. I had my camera because I used to take pictures for school yearbooks and stuff like that. So I thought I'd need some practice, and I'll go to Boston Garden, you know, take a shot. Sometimes they'll print it, sometimes they won't, because back then it was a monthly magazine,
Of
and
course.
they wanted to just print like the Madison Square Garden show, and so that's how I started. So one thing led to another, you know. Like in the summertime, he would go, "Hey, can you go to Philadelphia? There's a NWA gonna be over there," and I'm like, "Oh yeah," because um, I was really into like Harley Race, Terry Funk, Dory Funk,
Right. The
Jack
traveling world champions.
Jack Briscoe, some of the these faces, these wrestlers that would come to Japan and wrestle, and um, you know, I'm like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I know those guys," like all right, of course I'll go, and same thing, that was like, back then getting credentials were like, kind of a half of the pain in the neck, for me, because they wouldn't give me any, like, it wasn't like a 1 year pass or anything. I just knocked the door. I always trying to figure out where the back door is, and then here comes Dusty Rhodes, peeking out the door, and then he goes like, what do you want, kid?" And I'm like, "Sir, I'm from Japan. I'm not really from Japan anymore because I've been living in the States,
Yeah.
but I'm from Japan, wrestling press." He goes, "Oh, you come all the way this far, you might as well come in." I'm like, what, 20, 21, something like that when I started. So like in the summertime I would just drive down there, or to Philly, or to uh Baltimore, or just go further and further. I went to even like where is that, Charlotte, you know and Texas. I loved, I don't mind driving actually. So I'm like, okay, cool, I'll go, and I just go on a road trip, and go take some shots, and then send the photos. Back then it was, I have to send it like a Federal Express or something. Nowadays you just digital and send it on computer. But back then it was like that. Had to actually even send the film once from after shooting in Madison Square Garden. They really wanted a rush, so I had to go to Rockefeller Center, and over there's like this humongous fax machines, like a fax machine size of your room.
Mhm.
Nowadays it's like this small, the fax machines, but it was like a humongous thing. And I give the film, and I said, and I thought I gave the right address and the right phone number. It went to a different newspaper. you know and apparently that was a Tokyo Sports. It's a
Right.
newspaper. They went to Tokyo Sports, and the Tokyo Sports guy I guess communicated with my brother and saying, hey, I think I have your photo from your brother, Wally. I think you need this, right? So it was kind of a pain in the neck, but it was also fun, because I get to travel, and they would pay my travel expense. And you know, for a kid, I didn't really have any, job, so getting
Right.
some good extra cash was great. And then seeing like some of these, I was I'm really like like when I first saw like Terry Funk on the ring, like not on TV, I'm like I think I watched the whole match. Like definitely when Dory and Terry was actually when they came to Madison Square Garden. I'm like watching it, like this. I'm like, I'm like, not in the in the camera. I'm like, wow. Oh, there they go. All right, So, you know, I guess if that makes me a fan, I was like really
Mhm.
marking out watching, guys like that, in the beginning.
I mean, so far your story sounds a lot like mine, because I mean, I haven't had the chance to travel as much as you, but it's doing the same
Right.
stuff, knocking on the
Right.
doors and getting credentials and doing what we
Yeah.
can. So I
Yeah.
want to ask about your next step, which is
Mhm.
when did you eventually start, working with WWE close enough that they asked you to do commentary?
Well, I forgot which WrestleMania it was, but I saw my buddy Funaki in a penguin suit, like with
Mhm.
the bow tie, and I mean with the tie and a tux and everything. And I'm taking photos still, and then um, after the match, after the show was over, he's coming down, and I'm just like going, "Hey, so what you doing now?" And he goes, "Oh, we started doing commenting for Japanese, for Japanese in Japanese language
Right.
for WWE." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Because I've known him for a while, since he actually came to WWE,
Right.
and I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" And you know what? You should be doing that with me, don't you think? And and then he's like, I'm sorry, of course, kind of thing. And then he was the one who hooked me up to the TV guys in Stanford, and hooked me up an audition. And you know, they just said, "Come on down." And I went down there and you know did the audition, and they were like, "Okay, Shun, you're on from the next pay-per-view."
Awesome. Yeah.
So and I had a whole, I've known Funaki for a pretty long time, and I've never done broadcasting before, but I just thought, it's something that I've been doing since half of my life.
Right.
you know because what, 83, I mean, okay, so here it is. I went to all WrestleManias. I
Every
went to
single.
every single one of them. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
pretty amazing thing.
Yeah, I think I did all pay-per-views except for one when the um something happened. I think it was a bus. I think I take the bus or something. Anyway,
Mhm.
I was late, I think I just made it to the last two matches or something. But that's about it. But I've been there since the Muhammad Ali Mr. T stuff, in Madison Square Garden. That was great. I remember that.
Okay, so I mean, I didn't even know that. So let me ask you about that. What's your
Yeah.
favorite? You've been to every single WrestleMania, so you can rate without any, gaps in the knowledge. Which has been your favorite one to go to? Just as a fan, not even as a broadcaster.
First one was amazing. Not just the Madison. First of all, Madison Square Garden itself has a big like aura to
Right.
it. There used to be a TV once a month. Once a week wrestling program called the Madison Square Garden Show. Which always happened to be right. Same time with one of the cartoons I wanted to see with my brother, and we used to get into fight. Who's gonna watch what? Nowadays you could just it's like, okay, you could watch your own stuff on your phone. But anyway, Madison Square Garden was a big thing. Like, just wow, this is Madison Square Garden. But of course, Hulk Hogan, Mr. T, Muhammad Ali, that itself was like a big wow, and to have a event like that, like a pay-per-view, was, I think, just starting up around then. I'm not so sure, but it was like a big wow, this is amazing. And of course, I think on that show there were many photographers.
Right.
Like, it wasn't just the WWE photographers and some of the Japanese syndicates, but just like, I think they were, because they wanted to promote,
Of course.
so they had, like, it was elbow situation, but by then, what year was that? 84 or something, 86, something like that.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. So, um, so by then I'm kind of starting to get used to the elbowing and all that stuff, and it was fun. Somebody threw me a tomato at the very end, but that's fine. I could take that. That was definitely one of them. WrestleMania is hard. The one is, I don't know if it's number 2 or number 3. 2 with the was it 2 when it was at Nassau Coliseum and somewhere
Yeah, it
in
was in
Chicago?
City.
Okay, so that was interesting too, because I took pictures at the Nassau Coliseum, and our buddy Scott Romer took pictures, I think, at Chicago, and then I think my brother was actually in LA.
Okay.
And it was like kind of a teamwork kind of deal, like, although, like, we were, in 3 different places, we had to kind of like, as a magazine, you have to produce as one, right? So that was kind of fun. Silverdome was amazing. I'm not going to go through all of them, but that was amazing. Every time I see guys like, back then it was Hogan, of course, um, like Hogan and Yokozuna in Las Vegas was a lot of fun.
For WrestleMania 10.
Is that 10 in Vegas? And first they asked me to sing the national anthem in Japanese, and I'm like going, you know what? I know the first verse, but not the last one, and I don't, and I guess, nowadays I could probably just Google it and get the lyrics, and like even read and sing. But I just gave that to my buddy Jimmy, and he was like, "Oh, I'll do it. Let me do it. Come on." I'm like, "Okay, you do it." So that was good. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, it seems like you've done so many different things in the world of wrestling. So
No.
I just wanted to ask, obviously you talked about your brother being a manager for Cayenne and you know Funaki for so long. What was your involvement with that angle? Did you have any, input? Were you just giving them ideas?
No, Victor Quinones was working, I think, with the WWE when the Los Boricuas was still around, and I've known Victor for a while because, just like I go to Madison Square Garden every now and then, I would go to Puerto Rico, and go see, the Carlos Colon shows or something like that. And Victor went to Japan, a lot, so he speaks, like, funny Japanese, and we were very good friends. And then one day he says, "Hey, Shun, Vince wants to see you." And I'm like, "What?" you know, and that was in Albany, New York, and back then it was JJ Dillon and um, Vince McMahon, and Victor and I went to one of the rooms, and then they started to tell me, what they want to do, because they're going to be bringing, I think it was Taka originally. I don't know if
Mhm.
Taka must have been here already, but
Right.
it was, but um, so they said, can you, do you want to become a manager? And I'm like, okay, I gotta think about this. Can you give me like some time? And I would have maybe said yes if it's like today. Um, but back then we were still, I was still shooting the pictures for the magazine.
Right.
And if I go on the ring, who's gonna take the pictures of me or of the situation? And then it's been something like what my brother's been wanting to do for a long time.
Okay.
He was already, I think, doing managing like Hakushi, back in Japan.
Hmm.
I think his name was Mr. Toyota back then.
Okay.
So I just met at the next whatever Raw, whatever it was, and I said, you know what, Mr. McMahon, I am so sorry but I am gonna turn this down, but um, I know somebody who would love to do this, and that's my brother, and so I, called my brother and says, um, Vince McMahon wants to see you, and they're doing this and this and this, and he flew over, and he got the job. I think also one of the thing was like we just bought this house we're living in, and we just had our first baby. And one of the thing was they wanted me to move to Stanford, which was
Right.
fine if it's now, but it was just, and then I know what the road is like, like they'll be out, 380 days a year, you
Hmm.
know, um, and also my boss in Japan what said that same thing, like, well, if you're going to be on the ring, who the hell's going to take pictures for us? And I'm like, well, I don't know. You might have to get somebody else, but um uh this guy, this my boss, Mr. Takeuchi, was very good to me when I started, um and so it worked out great back then, like, because I owe it to him,
Hmm.
to keep taking the photos, and not that I owed anything to my brother, but I knew he would love it, because he was always like that character, even
Right.
even in regular life, you know and when we have a family get together, like in New Year's Day or something, my brother and I would be doing a wrestling match.
Makes sense.
And he would always put me over. And so that's what happened. I mean, actually, Funaki, Dick Togo, and all the guys came over to my house, actually. And right before my brother was all a done deal, they came to our house because there was like a pay-per-view in Boston or something.
Hmm.
They came over to our house. They had a shitload of lobster. My wife made like the humongous amount of uh, clam chowder. They ate the whole thing, and they all sat like Japanese style, and they said, "Can you please become our manager, please?" You know, and I'm like, "Oh wow, you guys know about that, of course." And I said, "Actually, you guys probably know my brother, but he's gonna be doing it." And they were like, "Oh, okay, okay." So, um, One thing about them coming, it was fun. It was interesting. Is that my wife doesn't, and she knows that I've been doing this, and
Mhm.
she knew that I'll be doing this when we get, when I, proposed to her or whatever. Um, so she doesn't know anything, about wrestling, and but one thing was that when they all went home, um, she pointed out to me that, hey, that guy, she was mentioning about Funaki.
Right.
She goes, oh, that guy, you know what? He was gonna stay here. Because a lot of times the Japanese folks would come over here for a couple of years and then they go home,
Right.
or they'll just come for 3 matches and go home,
Yeah. The
you know,
excursion.
right? But for her to point that out to me, and that, Funaki's been here for I don't know for how long now, but um I thought that was pretty cool. I didn't, it just went boom, boom to my from my head when she said
Mhm.
that, because no, 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 they'll just come here and they go home. But so that was kind of cool, and now I work with him.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
so thank you, arigato gozaimasu, Fenixis,
yeah.
Fenixis,
Yeah.
Fenixis, arigato.
Let's talk
So
about you and
yeah,
Funaki-san. I mean, you guys
yeah,
have been calling matches together for a while now. So I wanted to
yes,
ask, obviously, um,
hmm
you have to build up that chemistry with your partner.
hmm hmm
What was it? And because you knew him, I'm sure that was easier. But
yeah.
how did you guys mesh together and get who's saying what and get that rhythm going as like when you started?
The first advice I got was to have fun. That was a great advice. That was the best advice, um, from Mr. Carlucci.
Mhm.
That was the best advice I got, and it's actually a very simple, um, re- you know, saying, just have fun. But I think that's really important. Like, instead of me trying to be somebody, um, if I want to do for this for a long time, and if I want to, give the audience, a fun time, was for me to have fun. And so we were just, the first, like, I think 6 months or a year, we were just like talking. We were like talking. We're of course calling the shots, but we weren't really doing like an intense, what do you call it, play by play,
Right.
because they could see it. They could see that, oh, rocks, rock through, Austin to the rope. They know that, right? Because you could see it. Of course, we'll say the finish moves and everything. And we were just talking, and some of my, they're still my good friends, from our old our magazine. When they started watching it, and I said, so I'm really embarrassed, but what do you think? And they were like, oh my gosh, it's crazy, it's funny, it's like, um I don't really remember like what I was saying, but I always try to mention like some of the old timers, like here and there, like
Mhm.
when Cesaro was doing the Cesaro spin,
Right.
around and around and around, and I'm like going, oh my gosh, that's what Don Leo Jonathan used to do, back in Japan. I remember that when I was like teeny bit kid, and they would like that kind of comments, I guess. Some of the folks,
Mhm.
um, but then one time when uh, you know, we were like going, maybe I should be more, doing the play by play. There was a little bit of uh, I guess, like, not a claim, I'm not saying it was, but the WWE Japan people were saying, can you make it more like a play by play? I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, no big deal. If that's
Yeah.
what you want, no big deal. Like, so I have to, like, study the name of the words, because like the name
Right.
of the words are like a little bit different now. Like they have like, like a it's a figure eight, or like it's a
It's
Asuka
an
lock,
RKO, not a cut.
yeah, but it's back then, it's just a simple, um spine buster, but it's called
Right.
something else,
Gotcha.
but it's no big deal because I've been watching it, so I'm like, okay, that's called this and that's called that. But so Funaki calls that kind of moves, like he wants to say get into those, and he would have all the facts always ready, like,
Right.
oh, this is what happened on the last Raw show, and this is happening, and that's why they are in the match, and I was I my head is like, um we should be clear to audience who's actually been going to be watching this for the first time.
Right.
I'm sure the hardcore fans and even some of the novice fans know why this is the main event, or why this is happening like this.
Mm-hmm.
The angles, they know
Right.
the angles, but sometimes we have to, sometimes or we actually tell the angles, so this is why we're here, this is why this is happening, kind of thing. And so we're just talking, and every now and then he would do the play by play, like every now and then. And we just because I had no experience in broadcasting, I just thought, okay, what should I be doing? I should be clear, I should make sense, and I should listen to my buddy, and reciprocate, like answer to him, and talking. And so I kept like my own notes of like what to or what not to, kind of thing. And we always try not to like overlap each other.
Right.
I mean, we do, it's just we can't help it, when like there's an exciting moves coming up, and when like it's a big finish or something, we both go like, wow, and it's a sincere reaction. And so I try to take time, listen, talk, listen, talk, and be clear. And that's how we're going, and have fun, I think, because back to the first WrestleMania, it's WrestleMania is fun. This is not a calculus class.
Right.
It's not a I don't have to like be boom boom boom. It's fun, so I make it fun because I'm having fun.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So I have a little request for you actually.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
ちょっと日本語に話してもいいですか？
もちろんいいですよ。
Okay.
はいはい。うまいね。
私は日本語分かってできるから、
はい。
あなたのペーパービューとあなたのマッチの日本語に見ています。
あ、すごい、ありがとうございます。
それから私は本当のあなたと船木さんのもっとのファンです。それからあなたの意見では日本人のファンとアメリカ人のファンと何か違うですか？
日本人のファンとアメリカ人のファンね、この違いね。近づいてきてる。前はこうアメリカのお客様はこうわーだったでしょ。で日本でプロレスを見に行くとね、それがノーマルだったと思うの。俺のなんて言うんだろうな、1970s、1980s の愛ではね。それでそうだな。でも近づいてるよ。その騒ぎ方をね。ね。例えばそうだな、なんて言ったらいいんだろうな。野球ファンいるじゃない？アメリカで大リーグを見てるときにね、ウェーブとかさ、ね、こう誰かがこうなんかこうやってさサイン出したりね、あとコスプレしたり、アメリカでほらこうなんか旗をペイントしたりさ、ね、でそういうのもだんだん日本のファンもやり始めてるでしょ。日本でもウェーブやったりね、日本でもこうまあ ジャパニーズ流のわーってやり方、ここになんかアルファベット書いたりさ、ね、裸になって、ね。だから、ファンは、近づいてると思う。うん。ね、で、まあ、俺は結局、アメリカに住んでて、ね、もう今の時代、アメリカの方でもうほとんどプロレス見てるから、日本でのプロレスっていうのは、あまり見に行かないわけよ。ね、日本に帰るじゃないonce a year ね、1年に1回。日本に帰って、まあ、時間があるって、東京で会って、例えば、知ってるレスラーが、ね、試合するときに、たまに行って、挨拶したり、この前は後楽園で田尻が試合があって、その同じ試合に藤波辰巳が試合してて、で、藤波辰巳はもうバックロンから知ってるから、だから、おはようございますってさ、まあ、そういう時に見に行くだけで、だから、なんていうんだろうな、日本のファンのこの実態というものを、俺は言えないよねっていうのは結局こっちに住んでるから、でもね、近づいてると思う。そうだな、昔よくレスラーがね、アメリカのレスラーね、外人レスラーが日本で試合するときに、騒がないっていうね。で、なんかやって、わーとかね、なんかやってから、パッパッパッパッパとかね。だけど、ラウディ、このちょっと狂ったように叫んだりする、それはやっぱし、まあ、インディビジュアルだけど、例えばアメリカだったら、ね、それがね、10人のうちに1人すごいのがいたりね。で、日本はまだ20人のうちに1人とかさ、30人のうちに1人とかさ、そんな感じ。でも、日本のプロレスファンは very dedicated だよ。特に、なんていうんだろう、よく知ってるよね。ただね、俺が思うには、なんていうんだろうな、プロレスファンでしょ。例えば、あとね、プロレスは見るけど、新日本は見ないとかさ、新日本は見るけど、他全然見ないとかね、WWE を見るけど、他は見ないとかね。あと、WWE と新日本は見るけど、試合に行かないとか、他の例えば団体に行かないとかね、そういうのが、多いと思う。こっちの、ちょっと待って、I'm gonna turn light on。ね、あれこれでいいかな。だからそこがね、違うのかもしれない。アメリカのファンは例えば、WWE だけじゃなくて全部見てるとかさ。だけど、はい、どうぞ。
あなたのために、あなたはアメリカのプロレスや日本のプロレスを、どっちはあなたの好きなですか？
難しいね。
私もで、それは難しいの質問だ。
OK、これがいいと思う。シリアスなのはね、あんまり好きじゃない。だから、90s かなんかに、ほら、UWF が出てきたでしょ、日本でね。俺あんま好きじゃないね。で、なぜかっていうと、プロレス見に行くでしょ。で、ファーストマッチからメインイベントまであるわけじゃない。で、いっぱい試合があるわけじゃない。ね。で、everybody みんなね、メインイベント見たいわけじゃない。だけどね、I like ね、最初の方、in the beginning, like in, なんだ、全日本プロレスとかさ、ね。っていうか、俺全日しか行ってないよ。あんまり新日行った覚えないんだよね。だけど、ちょっとコミカルな試合があるのがね、すごい好きなの。ね。だから、例えば WWE なんかでさ、最初、ドインクとかね。
はい、わかった。いや、今、サンティノ・マレラ、いや。
そう、サンティノとかね。 あのタッチ好きなんだね、俺は。だから、serious OK ね、メインイベント great ね、女子ありますね。だけど、こう、はははっていうのがね、やっぱワンマッチ欲しいんだよ、いつもね。だから、too serious だから UWF みたいな、こう too serious みたいなのは、なんて言うんだろうな、俺の肌に合わなかったな。not my cup of tea ってやつだよ。
はい、わかる。
I like watching the main event as main event だけどこう全体的なショーにしたら見たらちょっとねsame same 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 なんでね。だから、やっぱテンポがなきゃいけないと思うね。
はい。
だから何年か前にファミリーでメキシコシティ行ったのね。ね。バケーションでね。それで観光するじゃない、トゥーするんじゃない。で、one night ね、my wife and my daughter ね、goes ね、I wanna see lucha libre ね。And I'm like, oh, okay, I know they're playing tomorrow night at the Arena Coliseo. You know, it's because it's Thursday とかさ、ね。
Right.
Friday, they're playing at, I know they're wrestling at blah, 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 you know. で、first time, actually, I bought ticket.
Because all these times you're going free.
All this time I go from backstage or with the wrestler or with my brother in the beginning. I remember going to All Japan Wrestling and Mrs. Baba was on the front, and when I went to the gate and she was like going, okay, he's okay. But so I took them, to I don't know, CMLL or something, and I was just looking at my kids' reaction, and they were having a blast, and they said they had a great time, right? I had a great time too, actually. And if you go see a lucha show, it's also like the old, how do you say it? Old school booking.
Right.
They have serious matches, they have funny matches, they have tag team and 6-man, whatever. But they always have like a not a funny match, but like a match that would try to get involved with the fans, or
right.
Maybe dressed kind of funny,
like a pantomime sort of match.
Yeah, and they all loved it, and I think that's the best thing, like to have a little bit of fun, a little bit of seriousness, a little bit of technical matches, and I think WWE has that, and I've been enjoying watching it. My gosh, for a long time.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, hey, we've come right back around to being in English, so that's fantastic. Because the last question I wanted to ask you before I have some questions for you off air, but for now, what's your favorite match that you and Funaki-san have called in the WWE? If you had to pick one, and tell people if there's one match of mine you have to watch, this one.
Very hard, but Goldberg versus Brock. The one that finished like in about 30 seconds?
The Survivor Series, yeah.
I thought that was amazing. I mean, it was like, wow, 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 the whole time. And it was boom, boom, boom. That was a great match. It is a very short match. It is a very like one-sided match. But to do that, and to show that was a fun. That one I still remember. There are other matches, like what is it? Like Roman Reigns and Undertaker, or but that one with Brock and Goldberg was like high from the beginning till the end. Yeah, it was short, it was a short match, but it was a super high, and I've always loved Goldberg's entrance.
Right.
I like there are some entrances WWE entrances that I just love, you know. And Goldberg was definitely one of them. You know, I always loved Bret Hart in entrance, like when The Rock, of course, and Stone Cold. You know, actually, I like Kurt Angle's opening too.
Everyone likes that one.
You know, so you know, like it was just I just like that. You know, that one was burns my head. You know, and you know, there's so many matches, and guys like my brother would always know, like, oh, Shawn Michael versus Bret Hart. That was 19 blah blah blah, and that was in you know San Jose or something, and he'll know that kind of stuff. That doesn't come to my head, like I can't remember, you know, but I remember that match, you know. But the ones we called, and the one I liked the most was maybe that one. That one was pretty good.
No, I mean, that's a great answer. And it's a good point
Yeah.
you brought that one up because, Goldberg will be at the Royal Rumble January 31st this year.
Yeah.
He's going to be taking on Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship there.
Right. Yeah.
And you and Fudaki-san are going to be calling that from the Thunderdome. So
I hope so. I hope we're going. You know, this whole COVID stuff is so like, you know, that it, you know, so I couldn't go to the WrestleMania you know, this past one. So I guess I didn't go to one.
Gotcha.
I don't know.
Most people didn't go to that one, so it's okay.
That's what I thought. You know, I feel kind of bad for Drew because, you know, because of the COVID, you know, he can't go all around the world,
right.
You know, to show his stuff, and he can't go over to all the, you know, all the cities, you know, to show his stuff. And you know, so I feel ちょっとかわいそうね。ちょっとかわいそう。But I'm sure he'll you know, have his time, you know, coming up once this thing is all done, you know.
Yeah, so. I mean, that's the thing with WWE. At the end of the day, the show always goes on. So
yeah, I mean, you know, like, you know, back in the in WCW towards the end, like they can't finish this match. It's always like a run-in or a DQ, you know, and people are booing, you know, and I'm booing, you know. I mean, you know, when it was still like a TV show, you know, and I'm sure people who are much older than I am has much more experience and stuff like that. But you know, it was always TV, and the big match at the Madison Square Garden, or TV, big match in St. Louis, or big match in Minneapolis or something, right? You know, but you know, I didn't like it when, like, you know, the pay-per-views finish like, you know, DQ and say, oh, you know, tune into our Monday, you know, Nitro. I'm like, boo. You know, I mean, 仕方がないかもしれないけど, I think you know, in that way, WWE matches always like go, you know, they close it on the pay-per-view, and in a great way. Like, you know, when Shinsuke came out, you know, I'm humming that music, you know, when I'm going home.
Oh, me too.
You know, and that's an impact, you know, and you know, I think wrestling matches, you know, sure DQ, sure run-in, you know, but not on pay-per-view.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Hopefully we don't get something like that, and hopefully the Royal Rumble, it's a great show, and I hope to hear you there.
Royal Rumble.
You are there, I will be 日本語に見てほしいです。
Royal Rumble はね、WWE の all these pay-per-view, one of my favorite.
俺も。
One of my favorite pay-per-view, because it's always fun to see all these guys coming in. You don't know what's going to happen, and then you know, you get sometimes like these cameo appearance from the, you know, the old timers coming in, you know, and Royal Rumble is always fun, and I think it's going to be a great one.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Yamaguchi-san. ありがとうございました。
Hey, ありがとうございました. Thank you very much. I see you sometimes.